What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for the NFL Weekly, week 9 here on the network. We break down everything from the NFL this weekend from a gambling point of view. And of course, when I say I mean myself and my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing very, very well. We're going to talk NFL. We got probably, my money's going to be on the fact that the World Series is going to end tonight from all places where I'm sitting. And then we've got, of course, some great thoroughbred racing coming up right up the freeway in Santa Anita this weekend. So, hey, we don't have much to complain about.
Nope. And if you listen really, really closely, you can hear some basketballs dribbling on the hardwood. We're seeing some scrimmages starting, and I think we're about a week or two away from the season getting rolling. So we'll be getting back to the in the paint side of things. And yes, of course, as you mentioned, the Breeders' Cup is upon us, about 48 hours away. So make sure you go check out the original Call to Post coverage of that. But as we mentioned, this is time for us to kind of focus on the NFL side of things. And another crazy weekend. Two of the three best teams go down with the Niners and the Chiefs. Look, Joe Burrow did what he needed to do. Not a huge surprise, but Kansas City not getting the job done in Denver, scoring only 9 points. Once again, I'm not meaning to laugh, but it's almost like those words escape me, and it's just the craziness of the season continues. And of course, we did see the trade deadline roll through. Had a big trade, last week with the Eagles bringing in Kevin Byard. They stayed pretty quiet, but the 49ers going out and getting Chase Young. The Bears getting Montez Sweat. That's an interesting one. And the other one that jumped out to me, Josh Dobbs coming in to essentially replace or at least fight for the replacement job of Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins did tear his Achilles. His season with the Vikings and possibly time with the Vikings has come to an end. But the Josh Dobbs things definitely gave me a bit of a double take. But I should have known that something was happening because the day before the trade went down, Josh Gannon, the Cardinals coach, pretty much came out and said it's going to be either Clayton Tune or Kyler Murray starting next week, pretty much essentially benching Josh Dobbs. I thought Josh Dobbs played as well as he could have, but I think it might have been more of the fact that they knew Josh Dobbs wasn't going to be on the team because he was going to be traded. I think all parties are happy. I think the Vikings, if they can get Dobbs up to date on the playbook, I think they'll be okay. They have some good playmakers there. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Another wild week 8 and any trade thoughts?
Oh, trade thoughts. Let me start with the trade thoughts. Your boys picked up a great safety. Kevin Byard from Tennessee. Now, I don't know why Tennessee has given up all pro safeties, but hey, good for your Eagles. I mean, what a boost for that secondary. And got it at a steal. I think got him at a real steal because I think they gave up a 5th and 6th round pick or something like that. Which
it was actually a 6th and a 7th, and they also gave up I want to say Chase Edmonds, but there's a few Edmonds going around. The Edmonds, one of the Edmonds, Terrell Edmonds, like I said, I don't have the exact first name, but who was struggling to make it on the field with the patchwork secondary. So I think that kind of tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, and then the Seahawks went out and thought they were going to flex a little bit and let's boost up the defense. They picked up Leonard Williams from the Giants, and that sounded like a really, really great move. And they thought they were really going to put some pressure on the 3-time losers now, the San Francisco 49ers, to make that Western Division real exciting over there in the NFC West. And then San Francisco did what they did, and that was the Commanders gave up their 2 edge rushers, which boggled my mind. But they gave up 2 edge rushers, Montez Sweat, who you already talked about, and then Chase Young. Now, Sweat went to the Bears. So that was one of those division things. Why would you do that, first of all? And more importantly, the guy was going to be a free agent at the end of the season. Now, sitting at 2-6, the Bears aren't going to be rattling the playoff, turnstiles with fans. they're going to be sitting at home like you and I watching the playoffs. Hang on, just play it out. I guarantee you the Commanders aren't going to be in the playoffs either. Play the rest of the season. Let Sweat, hopefully not get hurt. Pick him up as a free agent. But if you want to give up money and people for that, go right ahead. The other thing, though, that Chase Young from the Commanders, the other edge guy, they sent him to San Francisco. So now you've got a Bosa and you've got Chase Young. So it kind of makes the Seahawk move not quite as thrilling. And, ooh, we better watch ourselves on the defensive sides of the ball. San Francisco did a great thing. And then the Vikings pretty much, they lose their quarterback, which pretty much means they may have lost their season. So what do? They send one of their better offensive linemen, Ezra Cleveland, to the Jags. And, that just kind of tells you the Vikings were already posturing for what do we do now? What are we going to do next? Those were the ones that stood out to me. And then, I guess all's quiet on the Raider front. I don't think they've been doing much of anything in the last 24 hours.
You know what's interesting? I actually I did hear a few executives were a little perturbed at the Raiders because they just flat out weren't answering their phones. They did not engage in any posturing. Now, obviously, I think what you're going to allude to, they were pretty busy with their own stuff. But yeah, I did see an article. I think it was Josina Andrews had reported that there were a few team officials from other teams, they didn't want to be named, that essentially had 4 or 5, they left 4 or 5 voicemails for, whoever that may be. No one got back to them, but we kind of know why now. But anyway, just want to interject with that.
Well, then maybe along with the head coach, the general manager, the offensive coordinator, maybe they also fired an admin assistant who wasn't checking voicemail for the Raiders front office. But yeah, everybody knows it broke late last night, depending on what part of the country you're in. McDaniels is out. And like I say, when your offense is only averaging just over 15 points a game, what do? You bring in a linebacker coach and make him the interim head coach, because that's really going to boost your offense. That's just genius, if you ask me. Now, on the other side of that, they did fire Mick Lombardi also, who was the offensive coordinator, and they brought in, Bo Hardegree. Bo Hardegree, former offensive assistant for the Bears, the Dolphins, the Jets, and believe it or not, he had a tie to the Patriots. How about that? So they're pretty sure he's going to be the next greatest thing since a sliced hot dog bun to hit a stadium, and watch the offense flourish. Dave Ziegler, general manager, is out. He is being replaced by Champ Kelly, who has been in the role of assistant general manager. That's probably the most sensible of all the moves that they made and on the coaching staff, front office, and things like that. But don't forget, they did this. They had an interim coach who took them to the playoffs.
Yep.
A couple seasons ago. Bisaccia, right?
Yeah.
But no, that wasn't good enough. They did the Padre thing where you've got a guy sitting there who got you to the playoffs. I know, let's let him go. So they let him go. They bring in McDaniels, and don't they all look like geniuses for that move? So we'll see what happens with the boys in silver and black. Personally, I'm fine with it because they weren't performing. They hadn't performed all last year. They weren't performing at all this year. Terrible red zone offense. The defense is playing a little bit better, but they're still not the win. They're not the guys that are going to carry you through a playoff run. It's Max Crosby running like a madman, left to right, left to right, left to right, and then Divine Diablo goes out, and all of a sudden we have no linebackers. So things have to happen in the Raider organization. And for as much as I'm okay with the changes that have been made on the coaching staff, the general manager, I still have to ask the question, does this mean now that the offensive line is going to be able to dominate the other linemen, the other side of the ball? Are they going to be able to dominate the defensive lines that they go up against? Is Josh Jacobs going to now all of a sudden start running for 140 yards a game like he has to do to match his output from last year? And is Devontae Adams, or is somebody going to throw the guy the ball? they're already talking that it's sounding like the needle is already on the side of benching Garoppolo this week.
Yep.
He will not be starting this week. So this whole plan for 2023 is as good as the Vikings giving up their offensive linemen, the Commanders giving up their edge rushers. It's all they're basically at the rebuilding situation again. They're not going to run a string of 9 wins over for the rest of the season and all of a sudden have this great record. They're going to fight tooth and nail to get to 500. And then it's going to be, well, at the end of the season, we'll see what we're going to do in 2024. Things aren't looking good in Raider Nation.
Yeah, it's kind of you know how me and my analogies, and I love pirates. I love reading books about pirates, and that culture's always fascinated me. It seems like right now, this is the equivalent of running the ship aground. Get off the ship, find a new one, off for better pastures. But it does seem like this season is kind of, you know, going to be considered an afterthought. And I do want to thank the Raiders, and I mean, I guess in turn also Josh McDaniels, because the reason I had sent the rundown so late was because, you know, yesterday we did the Breeders' Cup talk, we finished that up. And then I made dinner, thought I was going to enjoy a baseball game. By the time I sat down, I think it was already 5-0. By the time I finished my burger, it was 10-0. But anyways, then I typed up the rundown, went about my business, went to sleep, blah, 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 woke up to use the restroom about 12:30, saw the alert, and I went, oh man, we got to add that to the rundown. Oh, the rundown. So at 12:40, I'm half asleep, loading up my laptop, getting that sent off to Raider Jim. So if that wouldn't have happened, this would have been a much different show, because Raider Jim would have been like, what's going on? I would have been at work going, oh my gosh, I don't have access to that file. So all's well that ends well. Unfortunately, it took the Raiders season to sacrifice in order for me to make sure I got the rundown, but it's a fair trade. And then going back to what you talked about with the Raiders, or excuse me, the Bears bringing in Montez Sweat. I had heard, and I don't know if this is specific to the Bears, but there were rumblings that the Commanders did give teams the permission to speak to Montez's Sweat agent, so that they could start, I guess, preliminary extension talks. And there's kind of a lot of people believing that the reason this trade was made was, at the very least, the Bears and Sweat are pretty close to a contract extension. Because like you said, unless you want 8 weeks of, you know, primary negotiation, there's no reason to give up a second round pick if he's just going to hit the street in the offseason. So I think for, at least for Bears fans, from what I've heard, that's their hope. So we'll see if that does become the case. But for the Eagles side of things, obviously brought up Kevin Byard coming in. I think it will be a good trade, especially for the secondary that's just been so beaten up. Unfortunately, Kevin Byard and really the whole of the Eagles defense really did struggle this past weekend, which I don't know if it's just something in the water when the Commanders played the Eagles, but they look like an incredible football team when they play the Eagles. We go back to the first time these two teams played, it had to go to overtime. I was like, wow, I'm really impressed with the Commanders. I don't know if it was the following Thursday or 2 Thursdays from that, they end up getting blown out by the Bears. And you're going, what's going on? Commanders look terrible. Think the Eagles are going to blow the doors off them. Commanders probably should have won that game. Sam Howell played probably one of the best games of his life. And, you know, wants to build on that for sure. But I think a lot of people in the Commanders, you know, thought, or, you know, brain trust, if you will, kind of thought, you know, our team just gets up to play the Eagles. It's time to sell. And that's what they did. I mean, no team, I think, sold as much as the Commanders, getting rid of, I mean, probably their 2 best defensive players. Very, very interesting there. Not a huge fan of, I am a fan of Chase Young getting out of the division. Not a huge fan of having to face Chase Young for a 3rd time in a few weeks when the Eagles face the Niners, but we will cross that bridge when we get there. And for the record, Jordan Mailata only allowed 1 tackle of Chase Young. No hits, no hurries, no sacks. So, you know, always going to be tough to deal with Chase Young, but Jordan Mailata has at least lived up to that task so far, excuse me. So now it is time to look ahead to this week's games. We have 4 teams on byes: Denver, Detroit, Jacksonville, and the Niners all will take the weekend off. And I'll tell you what, Raider Jim, I'm actually very confident coming into this weekend, not because I feel like I've done more research or this or that, but the first 6 games we're going to be talking about, the lines are between 2.5 and 3.5.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. I thought of that.
Yep. If I'm putting it together, I'm going, oh, here's one. Oh, here's another one. Here's another one. I'm not even going to look at what the odds are when we do it. I'm going to keep it like this because it's almost like the football gods were like, all right, Brandon gets a bone now. So yes, a lot of point buying, half point buying for me. So yeah, first 6 games we're going to be talking about all between that 2.5 and 3.5 point spread. But first one, chronologically, as always, we have the Tennessee Titans. They're going to be heading to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. This will be Thursday night football. The Steelers, 2.5 point favorites. The over-under is 37. Oh boy. Either way, no matter what happens with the World Series tonight, we're going to have to watch this game if you want to watch sports tonight or tomorrow.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. Can we move game 5 to tomorrow night so we can watch that rather than this? But we're going to do our part. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Tennessee at Pittsburgh.
Well, Tennessee has just been, well, both of the teams really, both them and Pittsburgh. I thought Pittsburgh was going to play better last week than they did. They did not. However, they're going to be back at home and the weather's going to be fine. Cold, 38 degrees at kickoff time, which Raider Jim doesn't hang out in that kind of weather. But as far as the 2 offenses go, this isn't going to be an offensive battle. This is going to be a defensive battle. And I believe Tennessee has got a rookie starting.
Yeah, Will Levis threw 4 touchdowns in his debut last week.
Yeah, but that reminds me of the kid on the Bears when he was playing against the Raiders, and everybody was thinking they were going to just come out and keep riding that wave last week. Well, that didn't quite happen. I don't think it's going to happen this week either because you got that Watt guy on the other side of the ball that's going to chase him all over creation. And however, I understand Pittsburgh's quarterback is also questionable at this point.
It's looking like a Mitch Trubisky. I don't know. Thursday night football, I'm looking at it going, look, there's no reason to play the kid. So we might be looking at a Will Levis, Mitch Trubisky Thursday night football. Don't all run out to get your Amazon Prime subscriptions at once, please. Anyways.
but with that and all those factors, that's enough factors for me to say that Pittsburgh will cover at 2.5 on this one. The over-under, there's not going to be 4 touchdowns on the Tennessee side of the ball. There's not going to be 4 touchdowns on the Pittsburgh side of the ball. I see we've got an over-under of 37. I will keep it at, give me a 0.5 point, but I'll keep it at under 37.5.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. I see this as a Pittsburgh's going to come out and their defense is going to do what their defense does. Even watching last week with Pittsburgh, you're just kind of waiting for TJ Watt to make a massive game-changing play. And the hard part with this defense is it's almost like if they don't get points themselves or set their team up in very least easy field goal position, then they're going to lose. And that type of pressure, I think, eventually gets to you. Tennessee, however, I mean, we talked about Kevin Byard leaving. They were, everybody was on the table essentially at the trade deadline. I don't think Tennessee can kind of bottle that magic they got last week. DeAndre Hopkins looked very good. Well, Levis looked good, but that Falcons defense is not Pittsburgh, and this environment is not going to be a nice home field like they had last week. I think Pittsburgh does get the job done. I'm not going to need to buy anything here. I do like Pittsburgh to cover 2.5 here. I see this game being, just like you said, 20-17. So I'm going to buy a 0.5 point. I think 20-17 is probably on the high end of what you should expect. Might even be closer to 14-13, 17-14 type stuff. But I'm going to buy a 0.5 point just in case, just like you did. Get me under 37.5 Thursday night football. So moving our attention to another interesting game, to put it mildly. It's going to be the New York Giants. They're heading to Vegas. They're going to be facing the Raiders and kind of their new fresh faces on that sideline. The Raiders are going to be 2.5-point favorites in this one. Another 37 over under here. Look, as I always say, if we're talking Raider football, the first word has to go to Mr. Martinez. So Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
I already talked on the Raider offense and the lack of production. 15 points a game, not even 16 points a game. The defense is doing what they can to keep them in the game, and even at that. So you're going to rely on your defense that gave up almost 500 yards to the Detroit Lions. And it wasn't just 500 yards of long plays. They were getting manhandled on the line. And that wasn't Saquon Barkley in the backfield. So watch for Saquon. If you've got him on your fantasy team, get ready. You're going to cash in some points, I think, because all they have to do is watch that. And I'm pretty sure the Giants line is going to come out and give that guy all the room he needs to run. There are people on that defensive secondary, and I'm standing by the fact, even though number 24, Peters, I think is his name, had a pick six. I'll give him that. He had the pick six. Anybody notice after the pick six, he basically took himself out of the game, saying, he was on doing the oxygen, couldn't catch his breath. I don't think he came back in after that. Prior to that, that guy was so far off of tackles, and there were times that he could have been the guy to close in and give an extra yard coverage and stop somebody. It's almost like he doesn't want to get involved with that unless he really has to. So I don't think the Raiders are going to make this big recovery all of a sudden with all the changes. I think it's going to be a tougher game than they think and that the fans think. There was a change from the line. The spread is now 1.5.
Wow. Okay.
Raiders are 1.5 because they made that change after all the coaching changes that got made and front office move. So what's going to happen? I'm going to take, I think, good money to take the Giants money line on this one. And the over under 37, you could see a miracle because you could see you might see the Giants roll up 21 points, but even at that, the Raiders got to score more than 15, which they have trouble doing. I will go over, though, because I can see it being 21-17.
Yeah, I'm going to start on the over-under side of things. I just think the Giants' defensive line is probably the strength, position group-wise, and obviously I'm not isolating Saquon Barkley. He's the best player on this team, but position group-wise, even without Leonard Williams now, but the Giants' defensive line, I think, is the strength of this team. However, the one thing that really gets to me is look, the Raiders did not look good on Monday night, but I promise you, and thank goodness this game wasn't on Monday night, but if the nation would have had to watch the Jets versus Giants, Brian Dable might have been fired, because both myself and Raider Jim, the platoon, the combination of Raider Jim and Brandon Ferst out through the combination of Tyrod Taylor and I want to say Danny DeVito, and it's not Danny DeVito. Nick DeVito or Tony DeVito, I think, because his nickname or his initials are TD because he has the chain. He's the quintessential New York, got the muscle shirt, the gel in there. I love it. There's nothing that, I'm Italian, so I get it. But -9 total net yards. And of course, sacks are involved in that. That's what jumps out to me. Now, obviously, the Jets defense is probably 4 or 5 levels higher than what the Raiders defense does put down. But I think one of the big wild cards in this one, and actually the reason I'm going to take the Raiders, I always believe that after a coaching change, you see a little spark in the team. Now, I don't know how long that spark will last. I don't know if it'll last a drive, a quarter, a game, a 3 weeks, something like that. Probably a game here. But I think this, for the Raiders, they look at it, they go, look, everyone just got cleaned out. Whether you like McDaniels, whether you like Lombardi, blah, 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 that doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is we have a winnable game this weekend. Every Raider fan has to, at the very least, it's a winnable game. I think they go out, they get the job done at home. I like the Raiders, -1.5. I'll just do money line. I don't like those weird. I don't need to see a 14-13 game and me go, wow, okay, that's how my Sunday is going to go. So give me the money line. But I do like the under here. I just think two defenses that are going to, and like I said, the Raiders defense isn't great, but the Giants offense, I mean, two really bad offenses, but the Giants, I mean, -9 passing yards. I can't get by that. So give me the under. So it's going to be an interesting game. Thoughts and prayers to everyone who has to sit down and watch that one. No offense, but anyways, moving across the pond plus a little bit. We're going to be going back to Europe. Yes, it is that time of year again, I guess, but it is going to be in Frankfurt, Germany. And look, this might be one of the best games of the year, and unfortunately, it's probably going to be played in front of a lot of people who don't really know what's going on. But that's okay; it's all good. Here on the West Coast, I'm more upset the fact that I have to wake up at 6:30 to watch this game, which is doubtful. Just if you're on your injury report, definitely doubtful. But we have the Miami Dolphins. They will be facing the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 50.5. Once again in Frankfurt, Germany. 9:30 Eastern time, 6:30 Pacific. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Dolphins facing the Chiefs.
Yeah, and the Chiefs 2.5-point favorite, over under 50.5. But I will tell you, you and I have said it for the last 3-4 weeks. Kansas City is not looking like the old Kansas City. They pull it out. They have the way to do it. But if Patrick Mahomes isn't 100% after they fly across the ocean, guess what? It's going to be another long day for them, because I believe you sent me the note saying Miami's already there.
Miami, I believe, got there either Monday or Tuesday, like 2 days before.
Smart. Yeah. And I think Miami, they're coming off kind of a rough game. This is going to be something to watch. Now, I can't say is that I have all the faith in the world that Kansas City is going to pull off a 2.5-point victory, just like we saw the Niners go down 3 times in a row. We might see Kansas City go down 2 times in a row. I'm not going to be surprised at all. Rumor has it that Kelsey was on the phone in the locker room after that game, on the phone up into the booth with his little sweetheart, and she said, honey, just shake it off. See what I did there? You see what I did there?
Yeah, I did.
All week I've been waiting for that. Anyway, for those, look it up if you don't know, people.
Yeah, right. Or not. It's okay. You don't have to know. It's not a prerequisite.
Pop culture. Anyway, I think Miami's going to come out, take care of business on this one. I think Tyreek Hill is going to have quite a game against his old buddies. And give me the Dolphins +3 on this one. I think that they are going to take care of business. Over under at 50.5. Most conditions a year ago, you would have said yes. I'm not sure, but I will, I'll buy a point, go 49.5, and I can see this going 28 or 28-24, something like that. But I still like Miami and an over at 49.5.
Yeah, and then speaking on that pop culture reference, the Broncos PA announcer, or the DJ after the Raider or the Broncos took down the Chiefs, played "Shake It Off," and I'll tell you what, hey, it goes both ways. It's all fun when the rabbits got the gun, or it's no fun when the rabbits got the gun. So that's kind of where we're at now, and yeah, it's been working well, but yeah, it's gonna come back at you. I love it, and I haven't heard anybody boo-hoo it or anything like that. It comes with the territory. But yeah, this is an interesting one. I really, really wish this game was here on stateside. I don't care. I mean, take your pick where you want it. I don't know. And no offense to, Frankfurt. I feel like this is a bit of a wasted game. I mean, where were the Jaguars? Were the Jaguars not available? Well, I guess they're on a bye week, but anyways, so I don't know. This is tough for me. It almost feels like muscle reflex or like muscle memory for me to just put down KC. And I think one of the big reasons why I'm leaning towards Kansas City here, I've yet to see Miami beat a good football team. They played the Eagles and they played the Bills. Probably their two best teams on their schedule. They lost I don't want to say handily, but it wasn't, a nail biter, if you will. And then they beaten up on some bad teams. I don't know. I don't think Miami has the defense to necessarily exploit the Kansas City side of things. The offensive woes. I think this is a get right game for the Chiefs. It could also be a situation where sometimes what's best is to just get away. And this is what the Chiefs are kind of doing, right? They're going to be playing in, the only tension in that game is going to be between the players. There's no tension in the stands, very little at least. So I think it's almost a freeing atmosphere. You're not even going to have as many eyes as you would if this was even if it was a 10 a.m. game here on the West Coast, you're going to have double the eyes of that rather than 6:30 in the morning. So I'll take Kansas City. I am very leery of the time thing and the fact that Miami was out there 2 to 3 days before. I did check. It's an 8-hour difference. I don't know how the daylight savings affects that. You can do your own, but it would only do 1 hour. So I don't know. But I'm still going to lean Kansas City. I'd rather go down with Patrick Mahomes than bet against him and regret it later. So that's kind of my thinking. Definitely not very confident on this Germany game. Oh, and then I do like the over though. I do think two offenses that are going to get after it, throw the ball all over the field, tons of speed. And the other part of it is I think Tyreek Hill wants to put on another show. This is a team in Kansas City that essentially said, look, we can win without you. And to their credit, they did. But he wants to maybe prove a point. Unfortunately, it's going to have to be in Germany. He was very upset when the schedule came out that this game was in Germany. He really wanted to go back to Arrowhead, but maybe next year. We'll see. So with that being said, moving on to, and also I guess we have to, I don't believe the Taylor Swift will be in attendance. That's not anything I know. It's just, I don't know. If she's not going to Detroit or Denver, I don't think she's going to Frankfurt, but I'm probably the furthest thing from a Taylor Swift expert that you could find. So take that with a grain of salt. But moving on to Monday Night Football, it's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers at the New York Jets. I tell you what, the schedule makers did not envision Zach Wilson this many primetime games. But anyways, it is the Chargers as 3-point favorites on the road. The over-under sits at 41. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Chargers at Jets.
Yeah, and before I get to that game, just make a note to yourself. If you want to see that game from Germany, we set the clocks back on Saturday, so you're going to be up at 5:30 watching that game.
Ooh.
Just thought I'd mention that.
Okay, yeah. It just went from doubtful to out. Just a quick update there. Yikes.
Anyway, LA Chargers -3, over under is 41 on this one. Guess what, folks? It's going to be cold, slight chance of rain in New York, New Jersey, wherever it is they're playing. The Jets are just, that's it. Their best games might be behind them for this season. You just hit on it as far as offensive production last week. It's not going to get better for them this week. I think the Chargers are going to go out, take care of business. They cover that 3 points handily. No problem. Over under 41. It's going to be if the Jets can get points on the board. I don't think the Chargers are going to have a problem. I see them hitting, anywhere from 31 to 35 points without a problem. But can the Jets put up 10? Possibly. Give me a half a point on that one. Give me the Chargers -3 and over 40.5.
Yeah, I like it. Of course, you know me, I'm gonna buy a half a point just in case. So give me the Chargers -2.5. But even if for whatever reason I wasn't able to buy a point or buy a half a point or anything like that, I mean, I could probably ride the Chargers up to 5 or 6 on this one. I was very impressed with what I saw out of the Chargers on Sunday Night Football, beating up on a bad football team. That's kind of what I've been expecting. The Dolphins are that team that beats up on bad football teams. The Chargers are the ones that keep them in the games and sometimes lose to bad football teams. But I do think they get the job done. I also think the fact that this is a Monday night game, you don't have the 10 a.m. internal alarm clock or internal clock going for a West Coast team going back east. So I think all signs point to the Chargers in this one. I do like the under here, though. Look, the Jets defense has shown a really, at least penchant for shutting down good quarterbacks. Obviously, I'm not lumping the Giants brigade into that, but you can go back and look at some of the others. I mean, look, the Eagles were essentially shut down by this defense, and forced into a lot of bad situations. I do think that happens. However, the Charger or the Jets offense isn't good enough to capitalize on those to win this game. I see this something 24-17 will of course get you a push. But that is like 17 points for the Jets. Call the cops because something happened. But I think more of it 21-13. They keep it somewhat close just because their defense keeps them in it, but it's never really in doubt. So give me the Chargers -2.5 and the under 41. Moving on to what I would say the game of the day, at least for people who don't want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. It is the Dallas Cowboys. They are heading to Philadelphia. They will be facing the Eagles. The Eagles are 3-point favorites. The over-under sits at 46. Obviously, I'll get this one started. Look, obviously last week, Washington, for a second time this season, I think exposed the Philadelphia defense, especially the secondary that did seem like they were taking steps forward. I mean, we had a patchwork secondary shut down Tua and Tyreek and Waddle and company. And Sam Howell. And don't get me wrong, look, the wide receiver core for Washington is very good. But Sam Howell has been an unproven commodity. He looked really, really good. I'm worried about the defense overall, especially against a Dallas attack that they have. Now, the one thing I'm going to key on heavily, and the reason why I'm leaning Dallas here, but of course I am going to buy half a point because that's just what I do. +3.5 Dallas. But the reason why the Eagles offense has been very, very turnover prone. Well, Dallas's defense is a very turnover hungry team. Those two things come together, not great for the Eagles. I think the Eagles still win this game. I think it's a field goal game one way or another. That's why I'm very happy at +3.5, at least on a gambling side of things. As an Eagle fan, a little nervous, not going to lie. But I do like the over here. I think both of these teams, good defenses, yes, but really good offenses. A.J. Brown is, I mean, he is on par with some of the most dominant wide receivers that we've seen. And I gave you a little nomenclature on the Philadelphia, the tush push versus the brotherly shove. I'll give you a little nomenclature here for A.J. Brown. He is going to now be referred to as Mega John. Now, if you know Philadelphia, you know what a John is. And of course, nobody really knows what a John is. It's spelled J-A-W-N. It's a noun. It's kind of how us Californians say dude. Anything can be a dude. This water bottle can be a dude. My phone can be a dude. That's how it is in Philadelphia. Anything can be a John. So, pardon the Philadelphia accent coming out right there. But yeah, Mega John. So that's what you come for. Stay for the gambling advice as well. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Dallas at Philadelphia.
You're absolutely right. This is probably the game this one and the Buffalo game, the two games that I think are going to really be worth watching of everything else that's on the calendar. In this one, though, I think Philadelphia, they step up. They step up, and at this point right now, they are the kings of the NFC. And they know it. What I mean by they know it is they're aware. They're the guys with the targets on their back. And they are going after the big bird hunters themselves, Jerry's team. But I think Dallas defense aside, Philadelphia is going to come out. They're going to have a great balance on offense. They're going to ground and pound, boom, let it fly. And I think that's going to be what really keeps the defense, honest, if you will. On the offensive side of the ball for Dallas, I think they're going to run into a little bit of trouble with Philadelphia, not a whole bunch of trouble, but they're not going to move as freely as they might be against any other credible opponent. Philadelphia covers on this one, but I'm going to buy that half point and go to 2.5, not the full 3. And I think over under, I might even grab a half a point on that and make it 45.5. but we'll see over in this one, no problem. We might see over by the end of the third quarter.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hearing here is Philadelphia wins 41-38, and everyone
I'm
on the
good.
podcast is happy. Everyone wins.
Quite happy.
And those are the sweet spots. And that's why I love the 2.5 and 3-point spreads, because we could be on the opposite sides, but probably lined up to possibly get both of us getting a win. It's going to be an interesting game. I'm really excited to kind of see the Eagles against the Cowboys. And I was telling my, family, especially with the Niners losing this past weekend, the Eagles, once again, I think it stays the same. You got to win 13 games. You got to beat the Cowboys 1 out of their 2 games, and you got to beat the Niners. If you do that, you're the 1 seed. You're already halfway to 13. You got a chance to take care of the Cowboys right here. And in a few weeks, we'll be able to take care of, hopefully, the Niners. And if we check those boxes, like I said, we might be resting our players week 17 and 18, getting that 1 seed already, but I might be getting ahead of myself. So moving on to the Commanders, they'll be heading to Foxborough to face the Patriots. The Commanders are 3.5-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 41. This is interesting to me. I understand why the Patriots are favored by 3.5 here, somewhat. Obviously, Washington did essentially get rid of their two of their 5 best defensive players, maybe 2 of their 5 best players overall. However, I'm still not sold on what Bill Belichick, Mac Jones, and company are selling. I think Washington, the players that are there in that locker room, I think they take this as a challenge. Look at them going, oh, okay, the general manager thinks he can get rid of those guys, and we're just going to tank for Caleb Williams or, Brock Bowers or Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll show him. It's almost like the Major League, the plot of Major League, where they just try and win games to spite the owner. Maybe that's the case, not the owner in this case, but I don't know. I think Washington gets the job done. I don't have to buy a 0.5 point here. I liked what I saw out of Sam Howell. And I think the New England defense is about a step below the Eagles. So give me Washington plus 3.5, maybe a sprinkle of a money line here. I think it's a very winnable game for the Commanders. In terms of the over-under, 41. This is tough for me. I could see it going both ways. I am going to go with the over. Raider Jim, do you have any weather that would change my mind on this?
Light chance of rain is it. The weather, there is nothing beyond a slight chance of rain or showers in New York, Philadelphia, New England, which surprises me because I look at a weather map on the morning news and they're just showing blitzes of snow all over the place, but nothing that's going to impact an NFL game.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I will take the over. Not terribly confident. Definitely a lot more confident on the spread side of things. Washington, I think, goes in and at the very least covers 3.5. Might walk away with a win here. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Commanders at Patriots.
Yeah, I pretty much I agree with everything you said as far as 3.5. I don't get it. I know Washington gave up those two defensive ends, their edges, but at the same time, it's not like New England is the great offensive gangbusters that they were when Tom Brady was back there. What's going to happen in this one? I think Washington is going to come out, play very competitive. They rolled up some points last week, if I'm not mistaken.
They did.
They didn't have a bad offensive output. So I'm with you. The over on this one, no problem. I might grab a point on that and make it over 40 so I'll feel more comfortable and go to sleep well on Saturday night. But do they cover? I think so. I think I'm with you. I think they're going to cover the 3.5. So give me Washington covering and over 40.
Well, they put up a lot of points for them because I did have to check. 17. Yeah. So, but they jumped out. I think they were either up 14-0 or 14-7 on Miami, and then Miami kind of woke up. I think that's why, just like you, I was a little tricked because I do remember being like, oh, they put some points up, and then I remember, well, they lost to Miami, and Miami didn't put that many up for them. So yeah, I just had to go make sure. But yeah, 17 points for them. That's probably one of their highest outputs of the season for the Patriots there. So moving on to Sunday night football. Raider Jim kind of alluded to this as maybe the co-game of the week, at least stateside. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 2.5 point favorites. The over-under is 49. This is, a little bit of a, I guess, backstory, if you will. Of course, this was the game, that fateful Damar Hamlin incident from last year that never, the game was abandoned, canceled, whatever you want to call it. So, we will see how these two teams match up this year. But Buffalo heading to Cincinnati for Sunday Night Football. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
This is one of those games where Buffalo comes out and plays like Buffalo. They're the other team, just like the Eagles. They always step up, it seems, when they really, really have to. And I think they're really going to do it. Cincinnati's had a good ride. They're definitely back on stride. But I think in this one, Buffalo is going to prevail. Now, I saw a change on the line on Vegas Insider down to 1.5. And at a 1.5 on the spread, I'm going to take Buffalo money line on this one. But the ball's going to fly. The weather's not going to be a problem. Over 49 is not an issue on this one. Going to be a fun game to watch.
Yeah, I'm surprised at the over under 49. Okay, I will take that over, and thank you for it. I think we're going to see some points being scored Sunday Night Football, as you said. Weather won't be an issue. I am on the other side of this though. I think Cincinnati. It's kind of like the anti-Norv Turner, that he was so good in late in the season. Unfortunately for the Bengals, they're so bad early. And obviously I think Joe Burrow is finally healthy. I was very impressed with what they put together against San Francisco, mainly on the offensive side, because that was the first time that I heard actually and understood the complaints of some of my Niner friends who have been talking about Steve Wilks, and maybe their frustrations with him and pining for the days of D'Amico Ryans, if you will. That was the first time I watched and went, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. Not impressed with them. But I think more of that is what Cincinnati can do offensively. They've unlocked Jamar Chase. They have weapons everywhere. Joe Burrow, he had a throw, and I'm sure you've seen it, looked like he's going to get sacked. It's like a 6-second play in the pocket. He scrambles away, gets a ball on third down. I mean, just quintessential Joe Burrow stuff. I think he's back. I think the Bengals are back. I like the Bengals here, -1.5. But I will take the over, probably take the money line if I'm being honest. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of the -1.5. Once it gets below 2, just take the money line and be done with it. But I do like the over here. I think we're going to see some points being scored. I would probably put this closer to 59 if I was an odds maker, but hey, that's just me. So we shall see. Buffalo and Cincinnati. This is going to be a great one on Sunday night. I'm really hoping this one lives up to the hype, because I think we've seen two really good hyped Sunday Night Football games. We had, of course, the Cowboys and Niners. That was not good. Eagles, Dolphins, I thought was amazing, but I'm incredibly biased. I think this one lives up to the hype. Moving on to another really kind of sneaky, interesting game. It's the NFC West leading Seattle Seahawks. They're heading to Baltimore. They will face the Ravens. The Ravens are 5.5-point favorites here, and the over-under sits at 43. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Seahawks head to Baltimore.
Well, you said it. Seattle's the number one team in the NFC West, and they want to stay there. They made that one move on the defensive side of the ball, which, it's not going to hurt them, that's for sure. More importantly, I think now, you and I said it last week, after week 8, it's going to get real serious. Everybody's played for keeps anyway, but now that we're going into that second half of the season, some teams still have their byes coming up, some don't. Seattle, though, they're going to come to play in this one. Weather, again, not a factor. Baltimore has been playing very, very well. Lamar Jackson has been doing a great job running that offense. They've been scoring. They've been taking care of business. Seattle, though, is going to cover on this one. That's too much of a spread, I think. Seattle +6 is what I like. Over under 43, I'll take over all day long with that.
Yeah, I of all the games that's going to break up the 2.5 to 3.5 point spreads, it's this one. It's weird. 5.5. I'll take Seattle +5.5 all day. Now, obviously, the travel is something to consider. I do believe this is a 10 a.m. game on the West Coast, so maybe there is that
yes,
that internal clock situation. but Seattle's just kind of that team that it's kind of like, I don't know if you're familiar with The Office, but there's an Office meme and it's Dwight, really tall guy, and Angela's right here, and he's just standing there, and he turns around and she's right there, and he's like, oh my God, that's like the Seahawks. It's like we wrote them off after week one or whatever that was. And it's like we're going about our business. Oh, look at the Niners losing. Look at this, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden we go, hold on, wait, if it's not the Niners, who is it? We turn around and here's Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. And we're going, how are you the 3 seed in the NFC right now? Because that's what we're looking at. We have a Detroit 2 seed, Seattle 3 seed situation going on, folks, in the NFC. I like Seattle, especially plus 5.5. I don't know if they win this game, but I think they cover easily. I think this is a field goal game. The run game for Baltimore is definitely hitting its stride after they kind of, when they lost J.K. Dobbins. In terms of the over-under, I do see this going over as in this one, mainly because I kind of see this as a 24-21 game. It's kind of the way I'm seeing it. Like I said, maybe it's Baltimore, maybe it's Seattle getting the win. Either way, Seattle covers, and we will get over that 43. So give me Seattle plus 5.5 and over 43. Moving on we're going to head down south. It'll be the Chicago Bears. They're heading to New Orleans to face, actually, I could do that better. They're heading to Nolans, and the Saints are going to be 8-point favorites. The over-under is 41. Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors to get us started. Bears at Saints.
This is one of those games you look and depends on who shows up on both sides of the ball. Again, the Saints are a much better team than the Las Vegas Raiders. We saw what the Bears did to the Raiders, but then we saw the Bears go back to the Bears last week. And then I think it was New Orleans is who I was thinking of that put up some points last week.
Yes.
Yeah, they put up some points. I was like, wow, that was a shocker. Are they going to do that again this week against the Bears? Maybe not against the Bears. The Bears defense can keep them in a game if they really, really come down to it. It's what are they going to be able to do offensively? I would buy an entire point. I'll take Chicago plus 9.5 on this one. I like them to cover in the nice, cozy confines of the dome down there in Seattle. Over under 41, I would think, again, give me half a point and give me over 40.5. I think we'll see some points. It won't be a big shootout, but I can see it being 24-21, no problem.
I think the big thing, it was 38 points, 38-27, the Saints took down the Colts last week. And I think one of the big reasons why, if you go back and you look, they discovered, I don't know, Taysom Hill. This guy is incredible to see what this guy does. He's not a gimmick this or a gimmick that. He can play tight end. He can play special teams. He can play quarterback. He can run the football, maybe not at an elite level at any of those, but he can do every single one of those above average. He's like the poor man Shohei Ohtani football version. Right. And me personally, for the last 3 years, little fantasy football, well, not the last 3 years because I wasn't able to 3 years ago, but 2 years ago, little fantasy football hack. Taysom Hill is always my last pick. I keep him on my bench because he becomes at some point the most valuable tight end. Because no other tight end is going to be taking quarterback snaps. No other tight end is going to be taking handoffs. So, just a little fantasy football thought there. So I want to see New Orleans do it again. This season has been so weird, gambling-wise, things like that. I think a year ago or a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I just kind of said, look, in some games where I don't really know, I'm just going to take the points. And that's kind of what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take Chicago 8.5 plus 8.5. Will they win the game? Probably not. But they could maybe keep it interesting. I do like the over as well, though, if only for the fact that, who knows, maybe New Orleans does unlock Taysom Hill again and they go crazy. Look, they put up 38 points again. We're easily getting over because I do think Chicago's got 10-14 in them. They have some skill position players, and at the very least, their defense might be able to put them into some advantageous situations. So give me the over 41, but I definitely do think Chicago can keep this one relatively close and cover the spread. So final game we'll be talking about, it is the Minnesota Vikings. They're heading to Atlanta to face the Falcons. The Falcons are 4.5-point favorites. The over-under here sits at 37. I'll get this one started. Look, the Falcons are Arthur Smith. I don't know if he just thinks his IQ is like triple every person in the sporting world, but he had a very interesting press conference. So Taylor Heineke, I guess you could say, finally came back or got his chance to shine. Desmond Ridder did go down with an injury. And they asked, Arthur Smith, and essentially Arthur Smith said, well, we put, Taylor Heineke in because of injury issues. And they said, oh, well, is he going to continue? Well, Taylor Heineke doesn't give us the best chance to win. Kind of paraphrasing in that, but it's just a lot of double talk. It's almost like a less intelligent Bill Belichick coach speak. The Bill Belichick's of the we're on to Tennessee or whatever that was. I think Arthur Smith's trying to channel that. I just don't think he has maybe the linguistic skills or the thought processes that Bill has. But anyways, I just don't have a whole lot of faith in Atlanta. I think this is a bit of a team that doesn't know which way is up right now. They have weeks where they look really good. They have weeks where they look really bad. And there's not a whole lot of in between. With that being said, I'll take Minnesota. They've been through a lot. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is out. Justin Jefferson is out. But I'll tell you what, Jordan Addison, he looks like a real deal. I think the defense, look, Daniil Hunter is still there. He survived the trade deadline. And we'll see if Josh Dobbs gets the call. Might be a bit much for a quarterback coming in, essentially trying to learn the playbook in 5 to 6 days. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to bet this game. I don't think I'm going to watch this game, but for the sake of it, I will say Minnesota plus 4.5. Over under, I'm going to go over here just because of the fact that I do think these offenses have the capabilities to put some points on the board, and neither of these defenses really jump out to me as like absolute world beaters. And I just think 37 is a really low number. So give me Minnesota plus 4.5 and over 37. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you hit it. There's not defensive dominance on either side of the ball in this one. I do like Minnesota as well to come in. I might grab another point or half a point or a point and go to 5.5. But I think they're going to, at the minimum, they are going to cover. They're going to be inside. It's going to be dry. It's going to be nice. It's going to be just like playing at home. And again, we say what we say about the players that come in and have to be the backup or the substitute, however you want to put it. These guys are all professionals. They can put it together on any given Sunday. And I think that's what's going to happen for the Vikings. It's like, don't write us off too fast. Even if they did give up a really good offensive lineman. Atlanta on the other side of the ball, also going to be competitive, and they may very well win, but they may have to fight to do it. It may come down to that last second field goal type of a thing. So for Minnesota to cover at 5 to 5.5, not a problem. And I'm with you. I think we're going to see more points than we thought. I mean, you give us 21 to 17, and you got a 38-point game, and I think that's very, very possible.
Yeah, it's and the other part of this too, I was just kind of popped into my head. We talk about home field advantage. There are certain situations where you have home field disadvantage because there's going to be a lot of tension in that building. The first 3 and out, the first maybe 3 out of the first 4 drives end in 3 and outs. The Boo Birds are going to start rolling out.
Yeah,
players start to tense up. Telling you that actually that does affect them. Maybe not everyone, but I think it will affect some of these Falcon players, and not saying it will happen, but keep an eye on that. Maybe maybe place a little live bet to see how the crowd reacts, because I don't think I've heard a lot of Falcons fans on podcasts and stuff like that. They are not happy campers right now. A lot of it stems at the head coach and the handling of the quarterback position. There are a lot of people who have thought Taylor Heineke needed to be given an opportunity well before Desmond Ridder went down with a concussion. And, who am I to say? But it seems to be pretty unanimous on that side. Unfortunately, the only person that really matters in that decision-making process does not agree. But that's all we have for you for our game picks. Raider Jim, final thoughts for this episode of the NFL Weekly.
Final thoughts halfway through the NFL season, folks. So stay tuned, because it's starting to get cold, starting to get exciting, and the only thing we can be sure about is inconsistency is still going to be the norm around here.
Yeah, definitely. For me, mine might get a little mushy here. It is November 1st. We are recording, Wednesday, November 1st. So the holiday season is quote unquote upon us. Although it is still way too early to decorate for Christmas. I'm just going out on that'll be on my soapbox. Let me at least digest my turkey before you talk to me about your Christmas tree. But anyways, it is the season to be thankful. And, I always try and put things into perspective and want to just say how thankful I am to my co-host and friend, Raider Jim. Every week, especially this week, this is our second of 3 straight days of breaking things down, and the mental gymnastics of going from 2-year-old horses to the NFL, which is just as wild, then kind of switching gears back to the top races for the Breeders' Cup, the mental gymnastics, not easy. And we put, despite what our picks may say this year, we put a lot of effort, a lot of research into that. And I am just eternally grateful and thankful that I have a co-host and a friend that a lot of times can carry the weight and pick me up in more ways than just here on the podcast. But just wanted to say how thankful I am to you, Raider Jim, and to all of our listeners as well. But mainly Raider Jim.
Let me tell you, it's nothing but a real pleasure and honor that you even invited me a few years back to be part of it. So I'm in it for the long haul, my friend.
Yes, sir. And hate to be cliche, but the pleasure is all mine. But with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care.
Bet safe.